Hey guys, I'm FatBuddyCat, and this is a wicked little mini bike. It's actually a wicked muddy little mini bike, and it's due for some maintenance. First up, it's going to be an oil change, and it will behoove us to have some warm honey in the pot. That way we can maximize the flow of the old oil and break loose any contaminants the best we can without opening this thing up. We might as well have fun doing this. It's not that cold today. It is a little wet, but we are equipped with fenders. No brakes though. Treacherous. Engage. Could be tricky. Terrible idea. What a mess. There's a trail here somewhere. Still no brakes. Yeah, baby. Oh, this looks like fun. That was a blast. This thing can go a lot faster. It'll grab about 25, maybe 28 miles an hour up on the top end. But I'm a whopper. I'm like 250 pounds, Crocs on. So it's pretty impressive that this little 99cc engine can get me through the woods and a lot of those little obstacles. It's an absolute blast. The brakes are going to need attention. The engine is still warm. I have a somewhat clean Cool Whip container here. It's nice and white. I'll slide that underneath. Actually, first I'll grab a rag and wipe this off. We just have to get the nut off the end of this drain plug extension that I got over at Coleman Power Sports. Might be able to get a light in there for you. Whoa, look at that. Okay, all kinds of fun. Let me clean that off. I just used a chunk of plywood, little 2x6, and a couple weights to lift my front end up a little bit. That way things are flowing towards the drain. I used a couple wrenches. The bigger one was to hold the drain just in case. I tend to torque things a little tight, and there is a crush washer on this side, so I held that and then turned this with my 10mm. It's not going to be perfect, but it should be easy to catch that way. A lot easier than if it was flat. This might take a minute. I'm glad I did this already. I'd say that's about all we're going to get. I didn't remove the filler completely. I just loosened it a little bit. There's just so much dirt around here. I didn't want a chance pulling it off and having dirt fall back in. I'll carefully tighten it up. I'll grab that bolt and crush washer. I'll reinstall those, torqued, ready to go, as if I was going to fill it with oil. That was swift. Before we fill it with oil though, I'm going to take this thing outside and clean it. I got a bucket, some soap, some dirty soap, ready to go. Buddy. It helps if you wrap up your filters before you do this. Might not ride it again today, but it's just a good habit. Just because it's dirty doesn't mean it wasn't well maintained. Anywhere there's a chain on one of my mini bikes, you'll find grease of some sort. Now that I got the heavy off, I'm going to go over things, some of that super clean. Specifically, the brake caliper, my sprockets, and my chains. A little bit falls down on the frame, that's okay too. That's a hard place to get with a rag. This will do fine in there too. There you go, buddy. Why not? I try not to spend too much time around my wheel bearings. This is all going to go downhill. Let that simmer. Once more, the suds. I'll really do a nice job this time around. It's gonna look brand new. Forget those grippers. Maybe not brand new, but it's definitely gonna be a lot better than it was. Some of this might be permanent. Or just really hard to get. A little bit of extra love for Grey Goat Garage and my friends over at OMB Warehouse.com. And we should be ready to rinse it down. All up in there. That nice clean filler. I just removed my filter bags. Now I'll go around with my shop vac and get as much of the water off as I can. That'll do. Remember, it's not a show bike. This is a go bike. This Cool Whip container had a bunch of loose nuts and bolts in it for a couple months anyway. I have the light on so that we can see any metal flakes that might be in the oil itself, you know, just kind of suspended there. And there's a little bit, and it's very, very fine. Some of this is probably off the stuff that was in here, and might even be a little bit of sand. I poured it very slowly into a bigger container, and where this is white, I pour it over the edge. You can really see what's going over and out. Nothing out of the ordinary for a second oil change. This had a first run oil change, and this would be the break-in. I'm going to remove the filler and clean it. I'm also going to grab my rag and wipe this area off really good. This High Sun 99cc holds on to 0.37 quarts of 10W30. That works out to just south of 12 ounces. I just poured some Freshie into an empty container. We're just under 12 ounces. The mini bike propped up a little bit differently. Should have done it that way the first time. I can just pretty much bend over, do this standing up. I'm just watching that it doesn't fall or spill. So far, so good. I'm going to put it down right away because I don't want the oil going up into the head. My filler / dipstick back in. Wham bam jam. Now I can clean up my mess. Since these chains are nice and clean, we might as well take a look at those next. This jack shaft spins like absolute hot butter. I do not want to screw that up. It has to do with rotational friction and lack thereof being beneficial to this engine loading up on the clutch. Front chain is okay, other than it needs lubrication. The gold RLV in the back can be ran slack, but we're kind of pushing it there. I think it was 4 bolts on the bottom here that allow me to slide it forward. I'm pretty sure those other ones are for the side to side. Yeah, it's those down there. I'll loosen them up, and I just have to scoot the engine forward. This will stay where it's at, and it'll put a little tension back there. There it is, loose. Scoot it forward, and it's a little bit tighter. You don't want to go too much. When you tighten those 4 bolts, it tends to pull everything square and a little bit tighter than it is before you do so. So I think that'll fly. As crazy as this whole setup looks, it's really lightweight and super simple. 4 half-inch bolts, couple minutes. We now have a little more tension on our chain, probably a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of play on there. But with that nice gold RLV, it's not going to come off the sprocket. Now we can lubricate. I'm using a red number 2 grease. It's the same stuff that I put on my bearings. I'll work it in to both sides of my chains. First I'll do up here, then down here, along the bottom, and along the outside. For the chain in the back, I'm doing the same thing. I already worked it around the outside of the sprocket. Now I'm coming along the bottom. Getting everything that I can. I'll get some down along in here, up underneath, yada yada. Once I have it spread out, I'm just going to massage it in the best I can. I'll roll the mini bike back and forth. That way it really works in to those links. I wish you could feel what I'm feeling. This is an absolute thing of beauty. See if it starts up. It needs to choke. Run out a little bit. Shut it down. The last thing I'm going to do today is take care of those brakes. It's going to be a lot easier up on the workbench. I'm going to be just as impressed as you if this works. I'll try to get you a good view. Yeah, you can kind of see the majority of the event. A little bit tight. Front wheel up there. There. A lot easier than lifting it. I love this little mini bike. I think I'm going to need a couple 8mm. I'm going to back the tension off of my adjusters and then remove the caliper. There's my 2 bolts and the spacers that go between the bracket and the caliper. You don't need any nuts because the caliper itself is threaded. If I tip this thing over, I can see that I have an issue with the pads. They're worn kind of funky, they're not sitting square, and there's just a little bit more of a foreign debris stuck in there. I don't think that's enough to bind it up, but I'll take these 2 Allen's bolts off and investigate a little further. Probably going to just replace those pads. Looks like we got a little bit of grass. There's my spring. One of my pads. Yeah, it's definitely worn weird. The other one, same thing. It stinks because there's so much meat on the other side. I'll grab some Super Clean and foam that up real quick. Beautiful. Well, that's doing its thing. I'm going to search for some brake pads. I know I had some up here somewhere. I think that's them. Yeah, buddy. This little thing that looks like a micro lifter is actually the piston that goes down inside of the caliper. Nice and simple. Here's my pads. I'll clean my spring up and get this thing right back together. One pad goes in, then you add the spring. The next pad goes on in a manner that there is a space between the two pads when the spring is in that pocket. Finally, you add this cover piece, and I thought I stripped out one of my bolts. Look on the back, there's actually a nut that goes in that side. So the caliper is only threaded for this hole. I have the nut right there. I'll just place it in that hole that looks like a nut and then tighten the bolt. There's a couple adjusters to set these calipers. The first one is in the middle, and that moves the pad that's on the inside against the piston in and out towards the rotor and the opposite pad. These other two with the springs are to hold the entire caliper square to the rotor. Mine were definitely not set the same, and I'm not sure if that caused the entire issue that I had, but I'll definitely pay better attention to it in the future. I'm just going to reinstall this and take a look at those tensioner adjustments after it's on there. My wrenches to make the adjustments. First one I'm doing is this one to move the pad that's against the piston on the inside. I'm bringing it up against the rotor so it just barely has a gap. And then I'm working the other two. There, you can see it there. Making sure that I turn them the same amount. Left moves it in, going right moves it out. But this one, it's the same thing. If you turn this bolt to the left, then it brings the pad closer to the rotor. The tighter you go, the further in it pulls things and away from the rotor. Definitely good to know. I have a little bit of tension added to my first inline adjuster. The next one would be up at the lever where I'm in the factory reset position. We got all kinds of brakes. To fine tune it, I'm going to have to move it back down to the ground. Try the old ramp again. What goes up must come down, right? Got a handle on it. Darn kickstand. There we go. The brake definitely works. I actually think it's sticking a little bit. It is, it's very slight. Nah, we're good. If I lift it up, I can spin the wheel freely. So, if anything, we're just kissing it, and that's exactly what we want. I locked out this adjuster with the nut, both 10mm. Up top, at the lever. Here's where I am, basically back at the factory reset position. I can tune it from here as the brake wears in or out, however you want to look at that. And when this becomes too great, I can bring it back in and then get a little more down here. They don't last forever, but on this lightweight bike, they do all right. I actually think I could have got a little more out of those other pads. Oh well, save them for a rainy day. I only lost one zip tie in this process. Not too shabby. That's all it takes. And there's a couple more up there, but nice and clean. This part's kind of important. I'm going to give it a quick roll test. Back and forth, no brakes. Back and forth with the brake. Not going to happen. Backwards with the brake, forwards with the brake. Now I'll put my knee on the seat so it has some weight, and I'll go forward and pull the brake. Make sure that I can feel it. Nice. When you're sitting on the mini bike, you should be able to roll it freely and then pull the brake and not be able to roll it freely. At about half lever, you want to basically be able to lock it up if you pull it all the way. We're good. I think I'm going to tighten up the vent system on this wicked little mini bike. I just have one more project I have to finish first. Have a good night, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. I want you to stay.